A big thanks to my Patreon supporters for making videos like this possible, as well as exclusive videos you can only get over there for as little as $1 a month. Thanks, and now on with the show. Quality of life is a phrase you'll see pop up time and time again if you pay any attention to discussion of games. A sequel optimizing on its predecessor's potential, for example, will likely see talk of how the game features quality of life improvements over its original, optimisations made to the pricklier elements of a game's mechanics, so that a player experiences less hurdles, has to jump through less hoops in order to get to the meat of the experience they're here for. And it seems like a fairly reasonable point of inquiry on its surface. We want games to function, right? To provide as smooth an experience as is possible without hitches or imperfections, right? Well, I don't know, the way that games have been discussed lately has gotten me thinking that perhaps this kind of talk has gone too far. At times it seems like people are approaching games in the same way we think about productivity software rather than pieces of art, and that is troubling to me. To that end, there has been plenty of discourse surrounding the recently released Dragon's Dogma 2, for none of the reasons its developers likely desired, with talk of a far less than optimal PC port being overshadowed by the decision to include microtransactions for key items, and when it was found that such items were readily available to be found in-game, talk for a brief time turned to how a game in this day and age could have the gall to leave out industry standards like fast travel. How could the devs waste players' time like that, as they run vast distances between vaguer than is typical objectives that might not readily explain every part of their workings to players, and are subject to all sorts of in-game systems, leaving players scratching their heads about how to proceed? You mean to say we paid 60 quid for a punishment simulator? You are lying if you say this is fun. I mean, where are all the quality of life features? And look, amongst this noise, I just found myself thinking that is all of this not the point? By comparison, I recently played through the entirety of Rise of the Ronin, and despite its plethora of what might be called optimisations to the developer's typically unforgiving formula, and despite its grand ambitions as an open world, here we have a game with traversal that might as well be a menu, as you point at a place on a map and can put your controller down while your horse just takes you there. Sure, it's easier, it's more comfortable than Dragon's Dogma 2's world can be, I suppose, but it's also so nothingy, so mindless. I mean, of course, microtransactions in a single-player game are bad, but surely the more pressing matter in the case of Dragon's Dogma 2 is that, well, those that buy and use them so they can more efficiently zoom around this map are clearly missing out on precisely the in-the-moment dynamism of that game world that makes Dragon's Dogma so compelling. That friction with a game that suggests its world is bigger than just you, and allows you to navigate it however you choose, without the strict guidelines that other so-called open games might apply, so long as you are willing to accept the consequences of your actions. All of this to say, those people buying the microtransactions, demanding that fast travel be readily available in every game because that's the industry standard, are to me essentially doing the equivalent of walking briskly past a cinema so they can say to others that they saw a film. They're treating literature like a flip book so they can do that weird CEO thing of saying they read 15 novels a day or something. They are, in substance, experiencing nothing. That pushback from Dragon's Dogma's game world and its systems is its art. And honestly, the discussion surrounding this has gotten me thinking about what we expect from games, and why we as players continue to hold this medium to different, decidedly more corporate standards than we do other art. The idea that, as an enthusiast, no effort should somehow be expected on my part to engage with and think about a piece, to work past any imperfections or awkwardness that may arise, intentional or otherwise. Hell, this very idea that art should somehow be made more efficient is, to me, antithetical to the very nature of art itself. So much of my favourite art, whether it be games, music, film, literature or whatever, a great deal of its importance to me has come directly from the effort it took me to really dig and appreciate the beauty within a potentially harsh exterior. Or better yet, to appreciate that very harshness as the beauty. Like, if you told Napalm Death that they would be a bit more pleasing to more people if they just played more rigidly or cleaned up the guitar tone. If you told Hijo Kaiden or Peter Brotzmann that they could heighten engagement if they just turned down the volume a wee bit or shortened their pieces. Or if you told Chantal Ackerman that the viewer's quality of life would be improved if we didn't have to endure Jean Dielman peel quite so many potatoes. In all instances, you'd be very quickly, very explicitly told where you can shove your opinions. In other fields, artists are often respected for their obstinance, for their unwillingness to cave to audience demands about how their art should be crafted, purely so that said audiences could, in theory, more efficiently consume it and mindlessly move on to the next bit of content. And so, why is the expectation seemingly so different for games? You know, perhaps this is all because the audience for games is more directly involved in the progression of a narrative, and an artist doesn't want said progression hindered by player irritation. But even then, I as a player can appreciate some clunk. Like, Killer7 is never going to be renowned for its status as a quote-unquote good shooter, with its on-rails movement and the need to stop in your tracks and go into first person and scan a room to make the enemies visible and slowly aim at their weak points. It's awkward as far as shooters go. You could examine this process and find a million ways in which it could be optimized to more contemporary standards, free movement and aiming for one. But the awkwardness is the point. It's not only tense in itself, its tension is heightened because it's new, unknown. It jolts the player out of their comfort zone and makes them think more deeply about what they're having to do, the context and narrative surrounding their actions, in a way that more conventional shooters would really struggle to achieve. On the more extreme side of things, Deadly Premonition's driving is some of the worst I have ever experienced in a video game. Its woeful handling and pinball physics only hampered further by the fact you have to endure it so frequently and for so long, as you constantly pause to check you're on the right path in this mess on your often minutes-long drives between these samey-looking destinations, and yet I kind of grew to appreciate, dare I say love, almost every aspect of traversal here. There's something about having to stop and pull out a map to navigate these long drives that more convincingly nails the experience of navigating between small towns than any other game before it, where the diminutive nature of these bespoke environments often belies the extensive, genuinely labyrinthine and winding roads one must navigate in order to get there. And hell, even the handling takes what most games essentially reduce to walking but faster and turns it into a process that requires at least some attention and focus in the moment, the mastery of which can create a sense of zen in those lengthy drives through low-fidelity forests. Greenvale's continuous haze is as nostalgically comforting as it is suffocating, matching the uneasy vibe of the game overall. Suddenly, Deadly Premonition's awkwardness functions as legitimate mechanical storytelling. The game is richer, more memorable, and resonant precisely for these imperfections having not been buffed out for the sake of optimization. And look, I get it. Games are expensive to make, often requiring teams of people spending years of their lives trying to make a thing that investors are looking for a return on. My guess is that developers and publishers are understandably scared in an environment where engagement metrics reign supreme, where art has been reduced to content and there's endless amounts of it vying for people's attention at every second, that the audience will balk and drop your game at the first sign of turbulence, of jank or lack of quality of life features. But as we've seen, some of those most memorable and resonant experiences have come from precisely those titles where genre standards and player expectations have potentially been put to one side. You know, maybe we as critics, as an audience of players, could stand to be a bit more forgiving of those games that ask a little more of us. Perhaps the soul of an experience lies in that bumpier mechanical ride, so to speak, and we may find ourselves far more artistically, spiritually fulfilled for taking that chance and enduring it. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that daft YouTube stuff. It really helps the channel and it means the world. A massive thanks as well to my patrons, who you can see on screen and are all getting access to exclusive, fully produced videos that aren't available here. Your continued support is what allows me to keep going with the work I do on this channel, and I seriously cannot express how grateful I am for that. You are all the best. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Michael Tritt, Alex O'Sullivan, Rickety Cricket, Cameron Siniceros, Don McLean, Urban Cheese, Charles J. Liu, Alistair Dunn, Vitautis Catharsis, Dolly Bowman, Young Condor, David Karstens, Tom Webster, Danis Sikauskis, Jordan Midler, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Yogesh Deshpande, Joe Lanzone, Leah Chinello, Captain Knussbrick, Dylan Robinson, Bryce Snyder, CPJ MLT Limited, David Björk, Nelwyn Palacios, Timothy Jones, Carr Christensen, Matthew Grover, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.